We can rebuild him. We have the technology. We can make him better than he was.
Hi, today we're looking at a $6 million man and what he looks like inside. This example here has got the button that you press on the back of his body to make his arm lift has snapped off. So it's quite set far back. I could glue it, but I'm worried that that the strength of it isn't going to be great. But how do you get these things open? The answer is with great difficulty. So I'll show you what to do now and show you what he looks like inside. So the first thing I do is twist the arms off, because you don't want those to get in your way when you're doing it. So there he is, he's armless, and then you're left with this torso. So like a lot of later issue Action Men, these are sealed and glued units, and if you look closely down the seam of the mouldings, you can often see glue in there, so, and down there. So the only way to open him is to crack him open. To do this, I've wrapped him in something rubbery, like an old rubber glove, put him on a piece of wood and given him a gentle tap with a hammer, and you can hear a gentle crack as the seam splits open. So that's what's happened with this one here. So I've cracked it, and then I'm gently going to prise him open like so. I'll try and lift this off. Everything is spring loaded in here, so you need to be damned careful that everything doesn't come popping out. So there's the chest unit of the $6 million man removed. The legs, if you can see, fit into a slot there, which gives you articulation at the hip joint. So you can see there, that just slots on, and just take those out like that. The arms are, you can see the peg that sits into, this one's a bit different, but you can see with the peg in here, it sits into a groove, just like that, where it can rotate. So we'll take that out. This arm is the Bionic one, so you can see a square on where it connects into this gear mechanism in here, and then the rest of it is where it gets quite complicated. So what I'll do is take it all to pieces, or take everything out, and I'll show you the internals of it. So, and there's his head off. It looks a lot more complicated than it is, so it's really nothing to worry about. So that's the back pin. Okay, that's fine. Put that to one side. Okay, so what you should have in your $6 million man is a mechanism internally, which is a sequence of gears that will raise your $6 million man's arm. A lot of these things are sold on eBay as broken because the arm doesn't lift when you press the button on the back. That's largely because unless you turn the head all the way to the right, it doesn't engage this gear mechanism. So when the head isn't turned, that peg is like that. When it is, it moves into that, and that whole system of gears engages. So when you press the button in, it allows the arm to lift up. So you've got a sequence of gears in here, you can see them. The peg that goes on the back connects onto this little piece here, so that peg fits on there like so. So when you press it, it moves that gear in like so, which when that pin's engaged at the top, you'll see it moves that cog. So there we go. It's quite difficult to explain this. It's probably best just to have a go if you've got one that's broken or such like. So let's put it back together. First off, you get the back of your $6 million man like this. You can see where I've prized it open. Some pegs have cracked where it's been glued together. Luckily I got a reasonably clean break on this. There was a little bit of stress marks on the plastic there, but nothing I'm very concerned about. If this wasn't fixed, it would be broken. So first off, we put we'll try and put this thing back together. I'll just show you what this bit is. You'll see this bit that flies out because it's all spring mounted. This is the mechanism for activating where the head activates the system. So you'll see a little peg there and a little hole there. That piece clips over there. Okay, when you're putting this back together, you'll also see on the base of the head there's a little peg on the $6 Million Man. So the head fits into here, and when it turns, that peg and the head moves into that groove, which pulls that pin over, if you can see that mechanism there. So that's how twisting the head engages this system. Hope that makes sense. If that's there, that'll twist and it'll pull that thing down. So that white bit goes on the top just there. To reattach the arm, I showed you this one before that's got this assembly on. There's another cog in here that looks like so, another gear. That gear fits onto that one that turns, and we then get this spring that's invariably shot on the floor when you've opened this, like it did with me. You press that spring on there, and you then fit the arm, that crosshair section, into that hole there. So he fits in there like that. That spring keeps the tension tight, so you can see if that's there, how that's beginning to look like it takes effect. Okay, I'll show you when it's all put back together. On the back of the unit, on the front of the unit rather, you'll see a hole here. This spring sits over the hole, and you get this back press button that slips into here. So when you press it, like I demonstrated before, that's the mechanism, that spring mechanism is what forces that out, if you know what I mean. So you can get the repetitive pressing, which allows the arm to lift the engine block or the girder, depending upon which model you've got. So that's the theory behind it. Let me try and get it back together. This is where these things oft go wrong. So primarily you make sure you line the Bionic unit up so your right arm is the Bionic one. It won't really go in any other way, so that just fits in nicely and snugly like that. Yeah. The next thing you do is take this peg, this cog, and fit it over there just like that, like I've just shown you before. We then put this spring in here on top of that cog like so, and make sure that's nice and secure, and then we get our arm and feed him into that cog workings here. Like, this is taking a little bit longer than usual. Let me just get it in for you. So that'll go in there like so. Press that in there and clasp. It's not going in. Ah, that is in. That clasp that in there. They just hopefully that saw that. So you can see now what the point of that spring is. It's to push the Bionic arm that way to allow it some tension, and that cog gear rather that way, so it engages with the teeth on that other cog. So if you imagine that's like that, when the head's turned, that mechanism moves, and that's what allows your arm to twist. So far so good. Move that lever out there because I'm going to put this spring in now. So that spring, actually I'll put the head bit on. This piece again, like I told you, that groove goes on the up, that goes on there just like that. Okay, then because that's the front, your head has that peg that has to sit into that groove on there. So in that goes. So now when the head's on, you can see how that swivelling moves that plastic thing, which engages that brown gear there onto the arm movement gear. Okay, so when people are selling these as broken on eBay, either that system's knackered in the head or the neck, or they don't know to turn it, because if it's not turned, that won't work. Okay, so that's that heading on. Okay, this is where it starts getting a bit fiddly, and knowing my luck, everything will spring out of the way in a minute. So the next section is to place this spring over that hole just there, using this peg. This section that's got the shortest distance goes through into there, and we'll twist, we'll bring that lever around there, and that fits in there just like that. So, and as you can see, ours is still snapped. So, but that gives you a decent idea of, I hope it's in focus, that gives you a decent idea of how that works. So watch, if I turn the head, that engages that. Hopefully the head doesn't come flying off. Keeping all this pressed in. That's the mechanism that presses. And if you can see it, you'll see that arm moves. Okay, so clearly when these were made, this thing slotted into this. If I have this on there like that, it won't fit on, and there's a gap that where this fits in between the body. What I'm going to do is drill some holes into this, put some supporting pins in, do the same on this, and then hopefully once he's back together, I'll be able to glue him. But that for now is how the inside of a $6 Million Man works. It looks more complicated than it is, and as soon as you work out where all those springs goes, it's absolutely fine. Bear with me for a second while I drill out those pieces on here and on here so I can slot the thing back together. I'll be back in a second. Okay, I'm finally back, and I've drilled a small hole in. If this is going to go into focus, I hope it is. I've drilled a small hole in this peg here, and another couple of holes on that button, so hopefully by the time I've reattached it, it should go in and give it something to bite, to stick onto, whereas before it would just have been weak and fallen off. So I've kind of done this already, but I will just finish this off. So I'm going to get this spring and place it on there like so, get my piece here and fit it in like that, making sure that that peg goes in said hole like that. So I'm pleased with that. So let's make sure this is all working. That goes round to the right, we'll leave that engaged. Okay, now I shall put the thing back together. So that's completed $6 Million Man. Internally, I shall pop his legs back into this groove here, and not forgetting to pop, actually I'll put this in first, it's awkward otherwise. Pop that arm in. That one just spinned, it's not attached to anything, so pop in these legs into this, and hopefully this bloody thing does clip on. Switch there, and you'll also see another hole, which I don't really need, but it enables me to put a small screwdriver in and manipulate that. What I need to do now is, this thing's a nightmare to get back together. Why isn't that legs working? Oh, it is now. Now I need to get my glue on this piece and fit, if it fits, this button onto there like that, and then we can hopefully see if it works, which it should. So I'm just going to use super glue. There's definitely enough surface now for it to bind on, so I'm not very good at doing this kind of stuff on camera, so I will press pause for a minute. Okay, here he is, and I've glued his button back on now. The glue's not quite set just yet, but it's fairly, it's almost there, so definitely that wouldn't have stuck on before because there just wasn't enough aspect to grip it. So there we have him, he's back together. Let me put an arm on him like that, so no Bionics in it, and we'll pop this other arm back on him there like that. So let's twist him, and to see if he works, we turn his head so he's looking that way. The Bionic action works. Turn the head, disengage that, and the arm just falls down like so. If the head was locked, that arm wouldn't move, but what would happen is that his Bionic works, which is great news. So that's him complete. I hope you've got an understanding on how the inside of this $6 million man figure work. This one still needs quite a bit doing on it. This arm's knackered, the hand would be chewed by a dog, so I've replaced the hand, but its current fix isn't quite where it needs to be, and he needs some clothes, which I've got. They're just in quite a sorry state and need a bit of work doing on them. So so there we go. Steve Austin, $6 million man with Bionic arm action and a fixed rear button. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit like. No one ever likes my videos. Hit subscribe, and I will be doing some more videos very soon. Thank you.